From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark has a clip from the latest episode of Pods of Potential. I have the latest South America update with Greg McBride of Allendale, and Dustin wraps up his monthly chat with Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig. Now here are your hosts for today, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, we're back on Iowa Ag Matters here on a Thursday, and I'm glad to be back here with Mark Magnuson. A lot of stuff happening yesterday in the last 24 hours or so. Of course, we got the big E15 announcement. The emergency waiver came from President Trump yesterday, and of course, doesn't do much for us here in Iowa as we've already got year-round E15, but it does allow for E15 to be sold year-round throughout the rest of the country, which then again, as we talked yesterday in Waterloo, sends a signal of certainty to our corn processors and to the ethanol market that there is going to be that demand through the summer.
And Dustin, it's interesting too. It's kind of a crystallization of everything that we've been talking about over the past few months, the need for year-round legislation rather, to make it available year-round for the entire country, because then we don't have to do the waivers each summer. And we've seen it now with this administration, with the previous administration, the Biden administration. Both were putting out these summer waivers, and we have mentioned this many times. It seems like almost everyone is on board. Right now, the pushback is coming from those few refineries in the oil industry, and that is kind of the hang-up that's not allowing this to get through. But we, at the very least, do get the year-round E15 waiver for the summer driving season, and as you mentioned, that does make a difference.
Yeah, it does. And the hang-up is even more than the refineries. It's the lawmakers that come from the states where those refineries are in. That's who's putting up the roadblock right now. It's their election year. And of course, these companies are in their states and they want to make sure they keep their seat. So they're trying to accommodate some of the businesses in their state as well. So that, of course, is nothing to be unexpected. So, yeah, it was a good part of our discussion yesterday in Waterloo. Had the chance to be up there for the farmer appreciation luncheon, their first one. A pretty good turnout yesterday. Secretary Naig was there, addressed the crowd, and then he stayed to be on the panel that I moderated with Iowa Farm Bureau President Brent Johnson was there, and also Terry Johnston from the Farm Rescue was there. Definitely gave us some more perspective on the situation we're finding ourselves in, and really brought it home from the policy side to what farmers are dealing with, especially at some of their lower moments, Mark.
Yes, Terry Johnston does a great job with Farm Rescue. That is a great group, and they are always helping out farmers. And I wanted to ask you, Dustin, what other topics then were discussed? I know you mentioned E15 was a primary topic. What else did you get into? I would imagine fertilizer was a talking point as well.
Fertilizer was, but again, this is all a lot of up in the air. We don't know what's going to be like in the fall, but it's uncertainty. I think the main thing, if you're going to summarize it all, was uncertainty. The fact we don't have a farm bill. We need trade deals to be done. We need E15 year round. We need to know what's going on with fertilizer. There's some monopolistic practices going on there. And so there's a lot of it going around uncertainty. And what does this mean for the farmer in 2026? We'll go ahead and talk more about that in the show, but right now we have Joe Kemp from Comstock talking with Mark Magnuson about the grains.
Joined today by Joe Kemp of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Joe, what's happening with the trade in the grains here on Thursday morning?
A weaker stance, a reversal of what was some upside try overnight for grain futures that had a strong close on the midweek Wednesday session. We've got various bits of news out there, including on biofuels policy, the summer waiver for year-round E15 ethanol sales announced yesterday, still imminent, those renewable volumes that are expected to be favorable not only for ethanol usage down the road, but right away for biomass-based diesel, hence the continued rally that we have going on in soybean oil futures. It helps as well that crude oil is higher by a couple of dollars plus here as we start off the Thursday morning trade, but not the same upside follow through for corn, soybeans, or wheat for now. There is some premium we should note being put into the Kansas City wheat futures. They're up roughly $1 from the start of the year, and there is relative premium for relative stress on that hard red wheat crop down in the southern plains. We had a look at those condition scores, and they're down quite a bit from where we left off last fall on scoring that Kansas crop, for example, at under 50% good to excellent. So some bullish life in that market, but otherwise a weaker go of it here. Maybe some selling pressure. We talked to farmers out there that are interested in selling after the recent strength that we've had in the grains, and otherwise a market that's preparing for the next political development. It could be on China, some movement there this week as well. That helped finish the day strong on Wednesday as well, that there were these reports of the China meeting with President Trump being back on for May. Beyond that, it's about this upcoming weekend again already and what could transpire in the Middle East, along with the preparations that are being made now for the big crop reports, the quarterly grain stocks, and the annual prospective plantings survey that's coming on Tuesday next week.
Speaking of the prospective plantings report, if those numbers are different than maybe what some of the industry guesses are pointing to, does that have the potential to move the markets in a big way on that day, Joe?
Absolutely, and you do have a wide range of estimates going in already. We have this for corn acres, probably the most important number, the first glance that everybody will give on Tuesday to what farmers intend to plant for corn. Last year, it was such the surprise that the corn acres kept rising throughout the reporting cycle. So that's a number one lesson, is just how much these early numbers can change. Of course, weather dependent, but also still factoring in the prices. The prices for soybeans are higher, plus you have the costs going up for corn relative to the fertilizer market movement. But going in, again, a wide range of estimates, anywhere from just short of 93 million acres of corn to up to 96 million. And that matters down the road for the balance sheet and how we're going to start off. Is it going to be less than 2 bushels or still above it, like we're leaving ending stocks on the current year? So all about that corn acres shift coming up on Tuesday, and just to what degree we see that. And then also, not to forget, though, the quarterly grain stocks report and what it has to say about old crop usage and what's left over.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
We're back on Iowa Ag Matters, and it's time to go south of the equator, find out what's going on in Brazil and Argentina. Greg McBride of Allendale joins Riley Smith once again to get this week's South American update. Riley?
On the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the weather and conditions down in South America for another week. And Greg, what are we seeing in the latest weather patterns for Brazil and Argentina?
Southern Brazil and Argentina on the 1 to 5 day do have some spotty rains. There is some good rains in the forecast for Argentina. It's just a little bit into the southern portion of the growing area. Otherwise, still seeing decent rain. So 6 to 10 day forecast overall does increase the mainland part of Brazil, does take a little bit out of southern Brazil and Argentina, but again, that southern portion of the growing area for Argentina is on the wetter side, whereas the bulk of the area is still on the drier side of things. If you do look out at the 11 to 15 day forecast, there is a bunch of rain for everybody down there, so there's no concerns about them going into the dry period just yet. That'll typically happen as you get into late April or May, but for right now, looking okay.
So when we look into the conditions down in Brazil, then I know that they've been looking at a lot of dryness recently. Now having that moisture, has that impacted the planting and harvest progress?
Yeah, it's slowed things down a little bit for Brazil. Argentina is just now getting into to early harvest, but Brazil bean harvest is at 64%. That would be about 6 to 7% behind the 5-year average. It's a full 13% behind where they were at this point last year. Now, obviously, they're getting rains and all that kind of stuff, it does slow things down. It also is a big crop that they're harvesting down there as well, so that can slow things down as well. On the corn side of things, second crop corn planting is sitting at 91% planted. That's in line with the 5-year average. It does put them a little bit behind the where they were at last year, but overall no major issues. First crop corn harvest is in line to slightly ahead of the 5-year average and where they were at last year, sitting at 56%. 5-year average puts them at 54, and last year they were sitting at 52.
All right, and then on the Argentina side of things, specifically with corn harvest down there, what progress have they made?
Yeah, it's early for corn harvest, but this is similar to how some of the southern states of the United States or southeastern states get started well ahead of the Midwest. So you do have about 14% of their early corn harvest started. That would put them well ahead of last year and the 5-year average that are 7% and 8% respectively.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anyone who'd like to get in touch with Allendale, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com. And it's time now to run down those cash corn and soybean bids here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Thursday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Not seeing a whole lot of change. In fact, only 2 elevators made any kind of price movement over the last 24 hours. Let's take a rundown of where our elevators are pricing. ADM Burlington, 20 cents under on corn, $4.46. Soybeans, 45 cents under at $11.28. Cargill and Eddyville, 21 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.45. New Co-op Algona, 46 cents under on corn, $4.20. Soybeans, 80 cents under at $10.93 for the cash price. Ag State Sheldon, 30 cents under on corn, $4.36. Soybeans, 86 cents under at $10.87. At Ag State in Alta, they are 45 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.21. Soybeans, 81 cents under, $10.92. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 15 cents under on corn, $4.51. Soybeans, 25 cents under, $11.48. 5-Star Co-op Nashua, 30 cents under on corn. They're at $4.36. Soybeans, 66 cents under at $11.07. At Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, they're 28 cents under on corn. Cash bid $4.38. ADM Des Moines, 40 cents under on soybeans. Cash price there, $11.33. New Co-op Red Oak, 37 cents under on corn, $4.29. Soybeans, 78 cents under at $10.95. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 48 cents under on corn, $4.18 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 85 cents under, $10.88. New Co-op Sheraton, 37 cents under on corn, $4.29. Soybeans, 78 cents under. Cash bid, $10.95. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 43 cents under on corn, $4.23. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.03. New Co-op Glidden, 45 cents under on corn, cash bid, $4.21. Soybeans, 78 cents under at $10.95. Innovative Ag Farley, 48 cents under on corn, $4.18. Soybeans, 74 cents under, cash bid, $10.99. And at Cargill Muscatine, they're 22 cents under on corn, $4.44. Soybeans, 52 cents under, they're at $11.21. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a rundown of your cash corn and soybean bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
Well, we are going to go into another segment of Pods of Potential here on Iowa Ag Matters, our March episode, as Mark continues the conversations we've been following along this week. So we talk a little bit more with the Iowa Soybean Association. Mark?
Today's topic of discussion is 2025's research trial results and insights. And I'm here today with our friends at the Iowa Soybean Association's Research Center for Farming Innovations, Technical Insights Manager Rosie Cook, and also joined by Clay County farmer Paul Castle. So a big part of everything that we're talking about today is the upcoming Insights Report from Iowa Soybean Association and the Research Center for Farming Innovation. Rosie, what, first of all, is the Insights Report, and how can our farmers here in the state of Iowa get a hold of it?
Yeah, so our 2025 Insights Report is our second annual version of our own research and conservation report. It's been my passion project for the last year or so. It brings together some of our seeding rates, some of our fungicides, some of our nutrition research trials, and also supplements them with some of our conservation insights about how to make conservation pay, whether it's cover crops or various other conservation practices. So this report is very holistic in terms of our research, our conservation, everything that our team has to offer, and all of our results from the last year. We want to make sure that they're getting in the hands of our farmers and crop advisors across the state. So we're really excited that this is getting mailed to everyone that's a member and on our mailing list. Make sure to check your mailboxes the beginning of March. They'll be bagged up with our monthly Iowa Soybean Review magazine. So make sure you take a read through it. We're really excited to share these results with everyone and hopefully help affect your field levels productivity, your farmers level profitability, and your whole farm operation sustainability going into crop season 2026.
So basically, we're going to highlight some of the things that are in the report today, but just coming up here in the very near future, farmers here in Iowa are going to have this very same report in their hands and able to see the results of everything we're talking about and how that's actually applicable to their farm.
Yes, 100%. We're going to go through just a brief highlight of 3 of the reports that are in this publication, but definitely make sure to check your mailboxes, and they'll also be posted online on our website, iasoybeans.com as well.
So Rosie, let's jump right into the Insights Report for 2025, and let's start off with one of the report topics that is highlighted in the Insights Report, and that is from Darren Mueller. He's an Iowa State University professor and extension plant pathologist. Could you tell us about Darren, what he's been working on, and what he found out that went into the report?
Yeah, so we're really excited to share some of Darren Mueller's research and results around fungicide efficacies and resistance management. And this specific report that we included was because he uses checkoff dollars from Iowa Soybean Association and our farmers themselves. And we want to make sure that we're highlighting that research results that the checkoff is funding. So diving in a little bit to Darren Mueller's research, Iowa State conducted over 30 trials comparing both commercially and experimentally available fungicides. Long story short, there was only a positive ROI in these fungicides in about 20% of these trials that they tested, and that was only when disease was present. Now, it's important to note that fields that had low disease pressure were very unlikely to generate that positive revenue to overcome the cost of that fungicide application. And this further emphasizes the importance of knowing your disease triangle and knowing that in order for a disease to be present, you have to have both the host crop and the infecting agent and the right environmental factors. And if one of those legs of the triangle is not there, then your disease risk is very low. And if you are going to go ahead and apply fungicides, it's also important to remember the right time of the year, not necessarily calendar date, but the right growth stage of soybeans, which in soybeans, it's around R3 growth stage is the best time to apply fungicides. And taking Darren Mueller's research one step further, this all contributes to the Crop Protection Network, which has recently come out with their new crop risk tool, which allows farmers to better forecast disease risks. The tool takes into account weather patterns and GDDs and basically everything, and it helps assess for the risk of various foliar diseases in corn, soybeans, and it works for a couple other crops too. But this is really helpful because we know that foliar diseases drastically increase with extended periods of high humidity and or long durations of leaf wetness. And the last piece of this report we want to focus on is the importance of fungicide resistance management. So just like in insects or herbicides, if you apply too much of the same thing year after year, resistance can build up. And researchers have confirmed that there are fungicide-resistant strains of frog eye leaf spot in every sampled county in Iowa. And on top of that, there are some documented cases of resistance in Septoria brown spot. And this is all just a really good reminder that in order to slow down resistance buildup, especially in diseases, it's important to use multiple modes of action, as well as to only apply fungicides when your disease risk is high.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, we started the show today talking about the event yesterday, the Farmer Appreciation Luncheon from KXEL that was held in Waterloo, and you were helping to lead the panel discussion there with Mike Naig and others. And I know you had mentioned kind of the theme throughout was just uncertainty. Did you guys talk solutions? I mean, what were some of the suggestions from the panel in terms of ways that we can fix some of the problems that we're looking at right now?
Well, to me, it wasn't as surprising of an answer as you really would expect. It was the fact that Congress needs to do something. I mean, that was pretty much the message, especially with all these things of uncertainty. Farm bill, why isn't it getting done? Why is Congress dragging its feet? Trade, what's taking so long to get these frameworks filled in? We're waiting too long for some of these countries to come to the table, and we're dragging our feet and grandstanding quite a bit of times. Congress needs to act. The president needs to act. Also, when it comes to the transparency with fertilizer in that situation, Congress needs to act on that too. That was really a steady theme, that all of this stuff that we're dealing with that's really stressing us out is the fact that it's things that are out of our control. And it just, whoever's responsible for it needs to get the job done. And that's plain and simple what's going on. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined in midday by Brandon Doherty of Total Farm Marketing. Brandon, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
A little bit mixed here this morning. Corn neutral to down 2 cents, depending on which month we look at here. While beans are up 3 to 4, wheat's up 3 to 4. So again, kind of mixed overall. I think the beans are getting support from soybean oil, which is up again today, relatively sharply, about a penny or so. The crude oil is also up about $2 to $4 a barrel, so seeing a bit of a rebound there. That's probably also providing some support. But I think the big thing is we've got the upcoming quarterly stocks and acreage report on Tuesday, and then this Friday there's that ag event at the White House where there's some anticipation that the EPA may release its biofuel information, which I think there's some hope that that is going to be positive, which is why soybean oil is up and supporting beans.
Also yesterday, Brandon, we got the waiver for summertime E15 sales. Is that anything that moves the market, or is that something that people had already factored in as being a potential thing that was always going to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was largely factored in and anticipated, I should say. The other thing we did see yesterday, later in the day, was that the meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi was now postponed. It was postponed, but now there was a confirmed date, I believe May 14th and 15th, so somewhere in mid-May where they have a confirmed date where they're going to meet. And so that gave a bit of a boost to the beans yesterday. I think that was the bigger impact.
Let's talk about the livestock side. What's happening with the trade for cattle and hogs?
Yeah, kind of mixed overall as well. I've got live cattle mostly lower, down about 30 to 50 cents. Feeders are anywhere from down 20 to up 90 cents. And then hogs are mixed as well with some bear spreading going on. So down in the front months, up in the back months. As far as the cattle, we did see that, maybe we're kind of at a point where we're starting to reach that threshold of what consumers are willing to pay. So that may be weighing on demand a little bit.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Sure. The best way is to call us at 800-334-9779.
Brandon Doherty, Total Farm Marketing, my guest here at Midday. Thanks for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you much.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
May corn is down 1.5 at 465 3/4. May soybeans up 5 cents at 1176 3/4. May soybean meal up 50 cents at 320.30. May soybean oil up $1.05 at 68.15. On the Merc, April live cattle down 48 cents at 233.95. April feeder cattle up 88 cents at 354.23. April lean hogs down 30 cents at 90.60. April pork cutout unchanged at 103.40. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we are going to keep things going here with the marketplace. Find out what's going on with those cattle and hogs. Cattle been under a little bit of pressure here as we're not seeing much development in the cash, and some of the box beef values have been going down. Mark Magnuson has more right now with Joe Camp of Comstock.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
We see a mixed trade, some mixed results here this morning for hog futures, down in the front but up in the deferred contracts. They're trading in anticipation of the quarterly hogs and pigs report that we'll have after the bell today. And then mixed for the cattle futures, live cattle mostly lower but only moderately, and feeders split between the March contract up $1 plus and the rest of the board down just slightly. Now we have the March futures heading into a cash settlement expiration today, and that's coming into play as we see this convergence towards a higher cash market. Caution though, after yesterday, after a real strong start to the week, all of a sudden some of the bullish enthusiasm fading for cattle because the beef cutout values dropped pretty hard.
Joe, is it not that surprising that we haven't seen as much price movement on the livestock side just because it has been so volatile on the grain side and we know the relationship between those two?
Yeah, that's part of it that we're looking over in the grains and in other financial markets, even the stock market, for example, which the cattle have tracked really closely to, and the volatility there. But yet, that's something I note for looking at the implied volatility levels. In part, those go into pricing options and what traders expect for movement over the life of these contracts. And they're down and relatively lower, and they are relatively lower compared to the grains, as you mentioned. So it is a market where you're wondering, are we correctly pricing in the potential for volatility and bigger moves, not unlike we just came off of last year with in the cattle trade and in hogs too, with these runs towards record levels or near record levels for hogs. So volatility could continue to reign supreme here after what is, for now at least, a relatively quiet period for the livestock.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Oh, we've got our marketing videos up at YouTube, or access to that and more up at comstock.com.
Joe Camp of Comstock, my guest here today. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Talk to you next time.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Each month, Dustin Huffman has the chance to speak with Iowa Secretary of Agriculture Mike Naig, and in this part of the discussion, they will talk about some of the trade issues that the United States is facing. You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters. Here's Dustin with more.
And then before last time we talked, I should say, we were talking ahead of you possibly going to Mexico on a trade trip, and now plans changed in the light of how things were kind of panning out between when we talked last. You want to tell us what the update is, as it's been postponed a little while?
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to postpone that trade mission, that trip to Mexico that we were intending to take. And that came, if you'll recall, at a time where there was activity around cartels in the western part of Mexico, Guadalajara, that area. And several Americans had been stuck, unable to get back because of disruption in flights and those types of things. So just truly out of an abundance of caution for the group that was traveling with us, we decided to postpone that trip. Canada and Mexico, our number one and number two trading partners, critically important. We're very disappointed that we were not able to make the trip at this time because, of course, the thinking about heading into this year with the review of the USMCA, significant market for pork and corn and DDGs in particular, but really across the board. So Mexico remains an absolute priority for us. Unfortunately, weren't able to take the trip, but it's on the we're in the process of rescheduling, and we'll be getting back there as soon as we possibly can.
And you brought up USMCA, obviously up for renegotiation this year. I mean, as we look back on the last 5 or so years of it, is there anything that sticks out that we might need to change for agriculture, or also maybe reiterate is working for agriculture as these negotiations happen?
Yeah, I think from my chair, from our perspective here in Iowa, I think this works very, very well. But we have to recognize this, which is, hey, we're one part of this USMCA agreement. So you do hear things about automotive challenges, maybe some on the fresh fruits and vegetables side of things, dairy with Canada. There are irritants. But let me be clear about this. Every trade agreement, every trade relationship has irritants. But the point is that even as we dealt with things like Mexico trying to prohibit the importation of GMO corn, right? There's not enough non-GMO corn in the world to supply the Mexican market. The Mexican consumer can't afford to pay for it if they did try to create that market. And so we needed to bring resolution to that. And your ability to do that through the framework of a trade agreement is critically important. So very, very, very important that we have an agreement with U.S., Canada, and Mexico together. And there are irritants. They need to be worked through. But I would say largely for us, when it comes to pork and corn and DDGs and soybean meal, beef, turkey, these are very important markets for us, and we need to continue to push forward with that.
All right. And as we said, last week was the first day of spring, National Ag Day here today. But, of course, farmers chomping at the bit to get going. And we know 26 is going to be something we haven't seen before, just like it is every year, I guess. You know, there's a lot of stressors out there. There's a lot of stressors about what could be going on this fall because of things happening right now. I mean, there's a lot of things that farmers are worried about. But as we're getting ready to get those planters rolling here very soon, what's something that you want those Iowa farmers to be thinking about as they get ready to plant?
Well, first of all, this is a time of year that we can be optimistic about. Everything's new, everything's greening up, everything's possible at the spring of the year. But we can't sugarcoat this situation. We're in a tough situation from an economic standpoint, and nobody wants payments from the government, but they are sometimes necessary. And in fact, I think we need to have a serious conversation about what more should be done to help farmers, especially with the increased disruption here of late in terms of fertilizer prices and energy. But what's important, I think, right now is to remember that nobody has to go through things alone. There is stress in the farm community, and that there are resources. And it's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to reach out. I would encourage folks to do that. If you need to talk, there are many, many ways to do that. One of the things that we like to promote because it's been around. It's a good resource, and that's the Iowa Concerns Hotline, 800-447-1985, 800-447-1985. People that know how to talk to farmers. And I think that's important. So if you're feeling additional stress, if you're worried, concerned, having trouble focusing on what you're doing, this is a time to reach out and talk to somebody. So I want people to keep safety top of mind and mental health top of mind.
All right, Secretary. Well, who knows? By this time next month, we may be talking to you in the tractor going to planting corn right now. So appreciate you taking the time to visit with us though today.
Absolutely. If the weather holds, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that's true.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com.
Well, you heard part of the latest episode of Pods of Potential, the March episode, and the new episode for April will be dropping soon, and that will be an interesting discussion as we will talk pattern tiling and conservation practices that are tied in with pattern tiling and drainage, and that will be the April episode, which will be available soon. Thanks for listening to Iowa Ag Matters. Join us again tomorrow on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.